the third parent function. Y is equal to cube root of x. We're going to graph this one. Of course, we're going to need a Cartesian plane and table of values. I have again here negative values, positive values, and 0. Because when I substitute negative 8 here, the cube root of negative 8 is negative 2. Our point is negative 8, negative 2. Let us plot that. Negative 8, negative 2. So the point is here. Next, let's substitute negative 1 in here. The cube root of negative 1 is also negative 1. Negative 1, that is in between 0 and negative 2. And negative 1 again for y in between 0 and negative 2. So the point is in here. When I substitute 0 here, the cube root of 0 is 0. It means at the origin. Substituting 1, the cube root of 1 is also 1. So from 0 to 2 at the middle, 0 to 2 at the middle, so the point is here. And we have 8, the cube root of 8 is equal to 2. X is 8 and y is 2, so the point is here. Now let us connect these points and here is our graph. Let's determine our domain from our table of values. Since we can substitute negative values of x, positive values of x, and 0, it means the domain is the set of all real numbers. We can determine that from our graph as well, since this will extend indefinitely going to the left, meaning there will be graph on all negative values of x. Same thing here, it will extend indefinitely going to the right, so there will be graph on all values of positive x. And of course, it passes through the origin. Now for the range, since the resulting values also have negative values, positive values, and 0 for y, it means our range is also the set of all real numbers. Also from the graph, since this will extend indefinitely going to the left, and as it extends, it becomes wider, it means there will be graph for all values of negative y. Same thing with all values of positive y. So indeed, our range is the set of all real numbers. Now, what is the x-intercept? Our graph crosses the x-axis at the origin, 0.00. How about the y-intercept? Also, the graph intersects the y-axis at the origin, so the point is 0, 0. Now, let us test for the symmetry. Is this symmetrical with respect to the y-axis? Meaning, if I'm going to fold the Cartesian plane on the y-axis, will this portion of the graph coincides with this portion? No, it will not. So this is not symmetrical with respect to the y-axis. How about with respect to the origin? How do we test? We're going to rotate our graph 180 degrees. Let us do that. So here is the graph of cube root of x. Let us rotate that 180 degrees. And yes, the new graph looks exactly the original one. So this is symmetric with respect to the origin. And if that's so, it means this is an add function. You can test that when you replace x with negative x and it becomes negative f of x. Just like what we did earlier. Now, what can you say with our graph? Our graph is an S-shaped curve increasing gradually, going indefinitely to the left and to the right. Now let us discuss the transformation of y is equal to cube root of x. I'm going to use again GeoGebra. Okay, we will start with our mother function, cube root of x. X raised to 1/3 is just the same as cube root of x. So you already know how did we come up with this graph. Now, what if I added plus 1 in our mother function? Look what happens. The graph moved 1 unit upward. If instead of positive 1, I made it negative 2, what happened? The graph moves 2 units down. So that is the vertical shift. Now, what if I change my x to quantity x minus 4? Take a look what will happen to the graph. It will move 4 units to the right. The inflection point of 0, 0 is now at 4, 0. If I change x with quantity x plus 3, look what happens. The original graph moved 3 units going to the left. So once again, the effect of H is the horizontal shift. Now, what if the cube root of x is made negative cube root of x? What will happen? The graph reflects across the x-axis. So this portion is now this one, while this portion is this one. So as if you flipped your graph across the x-axis. Now what if I added 2 here? Our a is equal to 2. Look what happens. The graph becomes steeper. There have been vertical stretching. What if instead of 2, I made it 1/2? Look what happened to our mother function, the black one. It becomes flatter. So there have been vertical compression. That is the effect of A, vertical stretch or vertical compression. Now, what if the cube root of x is changed to cube root of 2x? Look what will happen. So there will be horizontal compression. The original key point of 1, 1 is now at 1/2 1. Just like what happened in square root of x. What if instead of 2, I made it 1/2? So cube root of 1/2 x. Look what happened. There is horizontal stretch. The key point 1, 1 of our mother function is now at 2, 1. So there was horizontal stretching. Now let me remove our original function and see what will happen if this cube root of 2x, the grid graph, becomes cube root of negative 2x. So it was reflected across x is equal to h. In this case, our h is 0. So that is the y-axis. Now let us remove the green and the violet graph. So what will happen if this 1/2 becomes negative 1/2? Cube root of negative 1/2 x. Again, the graph reflected across line x is equal to h. Let us apply these transformations. Okay, once again, I'm going to use a table. We have the parameter, the transformation, and what to look for. I'll start with parameter k. This is the vertical shift. It moves the graph up or down. Let's recall our graphs earlier. So our mother function, cube root of x, is the black one. When I added here plus 1, the graph moved 1 unit upward. When I added negative 2, the graph moved 2 units downwards. That is the green graph. Next parameter is our h, and this is the horizontal shift. It moves the graph left or right. Let's recall our graphs earlier. Our mother function is the black one. When I change x to quantity x minus 4, it moved our graph 4 units to the right. And when I change x with x plus 3, it moved the graph 3 units to the left. So again, h controls the movement left and right. Next parameter is A. It shows us reflection over the x-axis as well as the vertical stretch and compression. I hope you still remember important details about A. Let's recall our graph earlier. So if the absolute value of A is greater than 1, recall that I placed 2 here. What happened to the graph? It produces the green graph. The graph becomes steeper. It was vertically stretched. When I place 1/2 instead, it produces the red graph. So the graph becomes flatter. There was a vertical compression. And when I made this negative cube root of x, what happened to our graph? It reflects across the x-axis. So A changes the vertical scale as well as the orientation. Next parameter is our B. So this is about reflection along the line x is equal to h. Also, horizontal stretch and compression. I hope you still remember as well the important details about B. Let's have our graphs earlier. So if the absolute value of B is greater than 1, Recall that I placed 2 here. Cube root of 2x. What happened? It produces the green graph. So there is horizontal compression. The key point 1, 1 from our mother function becomes 1 half 1. The graph was horizontally compressed. And if the absolute value of b is less than 1 but greater than 0, let us say 1 half, like what I did earlier, cube root of 1 half x, it produces the red graph. There have been horizontal stretching. So our key point 1, 1 is now 2, 1. The graph has been stretched horizontally. And when I place negative inside the cube root, the graphs reflect along the vertical line x is equal to h. So the green one was reflected as to the violet, the red one as to the gray graph. So the graphs reflected across the line x is equal to h. In this case, our h is 0. So it means B changes the horizontal scale and orientation. And the most important transformation is that our inflection point 0, 0 moves to point HK. Let's look at this example. We are asked to graph y is equal to negative 2 cube root of quantity x minus 4 plus 1. Let's recall the transformation form. From here, we can easily identify that our a is negative 2, that our b is the invisible positive 1, our h is equal to 4, and our k is equal to 1. Let's recall the graph of cube root of x. This is the S shape that gradually increases to the left and to the right. Let's start with our k. Our k is plus 1, so this means our graph will move 1 unit up. From the inflection point 0, 0, it will be 0, 1. It will move 1 unit up. Next one, our h is 4. This means our graph will move 4 units to the right. So from here, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's it. Next, these two here, it means the graph will be vertically stretched by a factor of 2. Let's see that. Our graph is now more steeper. There have been vertical stretching. While this negative here, it means the graph will reflect over the x-axis. There it is. Now let us determine our domain. So looking at our graph, since this will extend indefinitely to the left while this one to the right, it means there will be graph on all values of x. So our domain is the set of all real numbers. Same thing with our range. Since this will go infinitely upward, there will be graph on all positive y values. This one infinitely downward, there will be graph on all negative values of y. So set of all real numbers. And our inflection point from 0, 0 is now at 4, 1, our HK. Let's have an activity. Who am I? Given clues about the function's properties, identify whether it's cubic, cube root, or is square root. Number 1, my graph is a gentle sideways S. I rise rapidly near the origin but flatten as the absolute value of x becomes larger. This is cube root. Number 2, my domain is from 0 to positive infinity and I only live in the first quadrant. This is for the mother function. And what is this? Is square root. Number 3, as x approaches negative infinity, I go to negative infinity. As x approaches positive infinity, I go to positive infinity. I rise very steeply. This is cubic. Number 4, I pass through negative 8, negative 2, and 8, 2. This is cube root because the cube root of negative 8 is negative 2 and the cube root of 8 is positive 2. Last one, I pass through 9, 3 and 16, 4. This is square root. The square root of 16 is 4 and the square root of 9 is 3. The key is not memorization alone. Use the domain, symmetry, points, and graph shape as evidence. Let's have another activity, domain detectives. Classify each equation, write C for cubic, SR for square root, or CR for cube root. Then state the domain. Number 1, this is cube root. So we have CR. And we know that the domain of cube root functions is the set of all real numbers. Number 2, this is raised to the third power cubic. So we have C. And the domain of all cubic functions is also set of all real numbers. This one we have is square root SR. And to determine the domain, we are going to set the radicand greater than or equal to 0 because the radicand cannot be negative. Square root of negative is imaginary. So let us solve this. 4 minus x set to greater than or equal to 0. So let us move 4 on this side. It will become minus 4. And then let us divide both sides by negative 1. So negative x divided by negative 1 is positive x. Negative 4 divided by negative 1 is positive 4. Since there is an inequality symbol and when we divide by negative, the inequality symbol reverses. So the answer is x is less than or equal to 4. That will be our domain. Number 4, we have negative x cubed plus 2 raised to the third power. This is cubic. Once again, domain is the set of all real numbers. Number 5, the square root of x squared minus 9. I've said it already, is square root. Now let us solve the domain. We're going to set x squared minus 9 greater than or equal to 0. This is difference of two squares. Let us factor them. If you want to know how to solve quadratic inequalities, watch the video I tag in this lesson. The solutions here are x is less than or equal to negative 3 and x is greater than or equal to positive 3. This will be our domain. The set of all x such that x is less than or equal to negative 3 union with x is greater than or equal to 3. And last one, we have 3 times the cube root of 2x plus 1. It's cube root. And the domain, of course, is the set of all real numbers. Now, let us put everything together. Try this. Given the functions, we're going to determine the vertical shift, horizontal shift, reflection, vertical stretch or compression, and horizontal stretch or compression. So for the vertical shift, we're going to look at this portion, and this is positive 4, so 4 units up. Horizontal shift inside the parenthesis, so this is 3 units to the right. For the reflection, since this is negative, across the x-axis. Vertical stretch, we have 2 here, so vertical stretch by a factor of 2. Horizontal stretch or compression, there is no value of B aside from 1, so there is none. Number 2, we have here negative 1, and this is for the vertical shift, so 1 unit down. This is for the horizontal shift, so this is 2 units to the left. Is there a reflection? None. There is no negative here. Is there a vertical stretch or compression? Yes, there is. We have here 3. So vertical stretch by a factor of 3. Is there horizontal stretch or compression? There is no B. So there is none. Next one, number 3. So we have positive 5 here, 5 units going up. We have here 4, so 4 units going to the right. Is there a reflection? Yes, there is, across the x-axis. Vertical stretch, this is just invisible 1, so there is none. Horizontal stretch, yes, there is, because we have 2 here. So there is horizontal compression by a factor of 1/2. Remember, 1 over the absolute value of B. So 1 over 2. That is 1/2. Next one, we have positive 3 here, 3 units going up. We have 1 here, 1 unit to the right. For the reflection, we have negative here and we also have negative here. So across the x-axis and across the y-axis. Vertical stretch or compression, we have here 2. So vertical stretch by a factor of 2. Horizontal stretch or compression, there is only invisible 1, so there is none. And the last one, we have here -4, so 4 units down. We have here 2, so 2 units to the left. Reflection, there is no negative here, so none for the x-axis, but there is a negative here, so yes, across the y-axis. Vertical stretch or compression, we have here 1/2. So yes, vertical compression by a factor of 1/2. Horizontal stretch or compression, we have here 3. So yes, there is horizontal compression by a factor of 1/3. Remember, 1 over the absolute value of B. So 1 over 3. Now let us apply our understanding to real-life situation. A community wants to construct a cube-shaped underground water tank that can store 125,000 liters of water. The tank will be completely filled. Letter A, what should be the minimum side length of the tank in meters? Letter B, if the community increases the side length by 20%, what will be the new capacity? And letter C, how many additional liters can the larger tank hold? Let us recall the conversion factor that 1 cubic meter is equal to 1,000 liters. First thing that we are going to do is to convert 125,000 liters into cubic meter. So we're going to multiply this by 1 cubic meter is to 1,000 liters. So liters here will cancel out. 3 zeros here with 3 zeros here. What is left? 125 times 1. So 125 cubic meters. Therefore, the volume is 125 cubic meters. Let us answer letter A. What should be the minimum side length of the tank in meters? Let us recall the formula for volume of a cube, and that is S cubed. Since we have here the volume 125 cubic meters, I'm going to substitute it. So I can solve for the value of S, extracting cube root on both sides. So this index 3 and exponent 3 will cancel out as well as these two. The cube root of 125 is 5 and the cube root of S cube is S. So S is equal to 5 meters. This is the minimum side length of the tank. Now let us answer letter B. If the community increases the side length by 20%, what will be the new capacity? So we're going to multiply our original side length by 1.2 because there is an increase of 20%. So 5 times 1.2, the new side length would be 6. Now let us solve for the volume of the new tank with 6 as the side length. And 6 cubed is 260 cubic meters. So this will be the new capacity of the new tank. Letter C, how many additional liters can the larger tank hold? All we have to do is to subtract 125 from 216, and that is 91. 91 cubic meters. And since we are asked on liters, we're going to convert 91 cubic meters to liters. 1,000 liter is to 1 cubic meter. Cubic meter will cancel out. 91 times 1,000 is 91,000. So the answer is 91,000 additional liters. For the summary, here are the things that we discussed in this lesson. Take time to understand this. Now it is time to check your understanding. Pause this video for more time. Let us answer. A resort plans to build a circular swimming pool with an area of 314 square meters. The contractor has two possible pool designs. Design A, a circular pool. Design B, a square pool. Both designs must have approximately the same area. Letter A, find the radius of design A. Letter B, find the side length of design B. Letter C, find the perimeter and circumference of each design. And letter D, which design requires less material for a border around the pool? We only have one given here, and that is 314 square meters. This is the area. Now let us solve letter A. Find the radius of design A, the circular pool. Let us recall the area, that's 314 square meters. And since this is circular, let us recall the area of a circle, and that is pi r squared. Now let us substitute this area in this formula. Let us divide both sides by 3.14. 3.14 here will cancel out. 314 divided by 3.14 is 100. So 100 is equal to r squared. To solve for r, let us extract a square root on both sides. The index 2 and the exponent 2 will cancel out. And the square root of 100 is equal to 10. This is the radius of design A, the circular pool. Now let us answer letter B. Find the side length of design B, the square pool. Again, we're going to use the area, 314 square meters. Since this is square, let us recall the area of a square, and that is S squared. I'm going to substitute 314 in this one and extract a square root on both sides. This will be cancelled out, and the square root of 314 is approximately equal to 17.72. This is the side length of the square pool. Letter C, let us solve for the circumference and perimeter of each design. Let's start with the circumference. The formula is 2 pi r. We already have the radius 10. Let's substitute. 2 times 10 is 20, and 20 times pi, approximately 62.8 meters. Now, for the perimeter, that would be 4s, the sum of all sides. And we already have the s, so 17.72 times 4, and this is approximately 70.88 meters. And finally, letter D. What design requires less material for a border around the pool? Since this one is 70.88 and this one is 62.8, it means the circular pool requires less material for the border. This is a nice example of how mathematical functions can support actual design and construction decisions. Gets? If you find this lesson helpful, don't forget to hit the like button and leave a comment. Share to reach more learners and subscribe to support the channel. For you to truly master this lesson, here is an extra problem for you to work on. I'll reveal the correct answer in my next video. Keep trying, keep learning, and as always, you've got this with Mom C Cube. Our next lesson is Life in Pieces, exploring real-life scenarios through piecewise functions.